Hey guys, and welcome to probably one of the dumbest battles you're ever likely to see. I'm a Rubber Duck of War, and today I am taking on the mighty forces of Nurgle. But you may notice something a little bit special about my build, and that's because recently I've been doing quite a lot of challenge builds for myself, attempting to bring stuff which is quite off meta and a little bit strange. For example, you're going to be seeing a full-toed Nurgle game from me relatively soon, and some full cav games. But in this one in particular, I wanted to go as max GNOBLAR style as possible. It is a full GNOBLAR build, apart from our Lord, because unfortunately, there is no GNOBLAR Lord in the game yet. But in lore, the old mighty goldtooth himself is carrying to battle on a carpet of living GNOBLARs, much like a queen ant being carried across a river. I believe there are some GNOBLARs on this model, so I'm going to let it stand regardless. We have Grease's goldtooth in the middle here. Here's our anti-large specialist, definitely the worst of the two legendary lords for the ogres. They are being Scrag the Slaughterer, but still very sexy nonetheless in his own way. With the Over-Tyrant's crown, we have the Horde Master, and so a load of goodies in general. So I'm expecting him to do relatively decent stuff. He can also buff himself to be even better anti-large specialist. In the back, we have not one, not two, not three, not four, but five GNOBLAR scrap launchers. A much needed punch to a build, because with GNOBLARs, you're relatively restrained on the amount of units you can bring. Your basic GNOBLARs, you have GNOBLAR trappers, and that's it. So luckily getting some GNOBLAR scrap launchers in there does give us some anti-infantry options. Our main battle line is a load of triple gold chevron GNOBLARs because, hey, let's face it, they're pretty cheap and cheerful, and I had the funds left over. In the front line, in the cheeky little bit of vanguard, we have a load of GNOBLAR trappers. Their main job to drag down exalted greater demons and anything which lacks armor. They're kind of chucking off bits of glass, bits of rock, and any scrap they can get their hands on is hopefully going to be able to slowly whittle the enemy down. Now, this battle takes a little while to get going, so we're going to go straight into play mode here. As you can see, there's quite a lot of distance between the armies. My opponent's gone relatively small and elite here. In his main battle force, he has triple plague bearers of Nurgle. They're slow, ponderous, but they certainly take a very long time to die. The opposite of that is the Forsaken. Very quick, massive damage dealers, but a lot less durable in combat. Looks like he has a couple of heavy hitters in the middle. We have some Spawn of Nurgle flanked either side by two Soul Grinders, really destined to kill enemy infantry. And we've only got cheap GNOBLARs, so I'm not expecting these guys to do too much damage with their range attacks. However, I don't have that much to kill pretty large single entities like this, so there's certainly going to be a problem in the long game. And now we have the buffed Kugath Plaguefather. Always thought he was pretty decent, but the exalted version is just so good. It's insanely powerful. So I certainly do like the fact Kugath got a bit of a buff, and looks like he's coming in with the majority of the spells for a nice bit of flexibility there. The Forsaken are the first to feel the wrath of the mighty GNOBLARs as scrap is launched at their face in high velocities. Just old nappies and bits of poo and glass and brick and all that lovely stuff you'd normally find in a British dumpster getting launched at the Forsaken, doing some pretty decent damage there. Down to about half HP off a couple of volleys. My god, that is a big hit. Now, scrap launchers aren't considered exactly the best artillery in the game. In fact, they're considered one of the worst. But brought in mass like this, we're certainly still going to do a decent amount of damage. Now, we are moving up our GNOBLAR trappers in an attempt to slow the enemy down. Likewise, my opponent's infantry doesn't really have that much armor. The Forsaken are the most armored, and they're taking a bit of a pounding at the moment from the scrap launchers. So I'm hoping that the slow and ponderous Plague Bearers of Nurgle can get finished off by the GNOBLAR trappers, whilst the Forsaken get obliterated by the scrap launchers. That's at least the plan. I'm going to focus down this unit of the pesky Forsaken early on. Look at the knives being launched. Oh my god, so many daggers being thrown into the Forsaken. Full ninja style there. I love it. Ripping into the Forsaken. Did some pretty decent damage. Hey, we may be little, but we ain't gobos. We're GNOBLARs, and we can certainly wrestle with the best. And Forsaken are getting driven back there, but so are my GNOBLARs trappers, particularly by those pesky Soul Grinders, which are doing some pretty decent work. Forsaken have been intercepted by the triple gold GNOBLARs. It looks like the mighty Grease's goldtooth is going to start rolling dirty and charging towards the enemy. It's also being supported by more scrap launcher fire. I don't really care if I hit my own troops. We are only GNOBLARs at the end of the day, and as long as we can kill the Forsaken, I'm going to be a happy ducky. It looks like the Plague Bearers have not engaged in combat. They're taking significant damage, though. Honestly, the GNOBLAR trappers are a really solid unit all round, particularly against Nurgle, who can struggle to catch them relatively easily. So we do have more Plague Bearers pushing through the middle. GNOBLARs are attempting to hold the enemy at bay. desperately trying to pin this, Plague Bearers in pace and allow my Gnoblar Trappers to rain shots in from afar, but my opponent is force pathing his way through wherever physically possible. In the back, we still have the Spawn kept in deep reserve. We've got some Forsaken who have rallied here, but realistically, they're not going to be coming in back into the action. Looks like we are targeting down the Spawn of Nurgle, actually doing some pretty substantial damage to them, but we have this double Soul Grinder Kugarth in the back, raining shots from the safety of their own deployment zone, and I'm a little bit scared about pressurizing them in the late game, because I, again, don't have that much anti-large, apart from Grease's Goldtooth, of course. The Plague Bearers, they may normally be tanky, but up against the might of so many throwing knives, only, you can only stand for so long. And look at these beautiful little Gnoblars go. Some of them even have saucepans on their heads in their own way of getting some makeshift helmets, and I absolutely adore them for it. It looks like the Plague Bearers do indeed go down, and we are able to secure the right-hand flank, the center, and the left-hand side. So initially, the battle's gone up pretty well for me, but I was expecting to take out the enemy infantry corps relatively easily due to the fact of the amount of artillery we had. Now, the Spawn of Nurgle have taken some devastating damage from those scrap launchers. My god, that is doing so much work. I have found the scrap launchers don't do too much, unfortunately, up against the Soul Grinders and, of course, Kugarth. However, against the monstrous infantry, they can certainly put in a bit of a shift. We're not the most accurate, though, so a lot of shots are missing. Looks like we are flinging a few downrange to try to finish off this broken-up unit of Forsaken. Shots continue to pound in, aiming at our Gnoblars having to weather the storm. Stay brave, lads. Grease's Goldtooth will not eat you. He promises if you are victorious. If you die, however, he will eat you and the next 5 generations of your family. So best get on the front line, lads. Gnoblars are continuing to push up. We also have a decent amount of trappers left around the battlefield. And the scrap launchers, okay ammunition. They are starting to dwindle a little bit. Enough to finish off the enemy infantry and perhaps bring a little bit of pain, at least, to the enemy range corps. In the trees, Gnoblar Trappers, this is where they were born to be. You think the trees are your allies' spawn? We were molded by them. Wait, I can't even remember the thing now. Born in them, molded by them. I didn't see open land till I was nearly a man. Spawn of Nurgle getting dragged down here and not having a good day whatsoever. Grease's Goldtooth is having a whale of a time, just eating his meat and charging forward. He reminds me of a small child having a tantrum, but hey, if that small child does enough damage to kill Spawn, I'm all for him to go ape wild there. Forsaken going to get dragged down here. There's just too many Gnoblars pushing through the trees, and it looks like an infantry corps is now pushing up on these pesky Soul Grinders, as well as Kugarth Plaguefather, who, from what I've gathered, hasn't used too many of his spells so far, so I'm expecting him to have a lot of Winds of Magic left, and they are obliterating me on the approach. We're doing some okay damage with the scrap launchers, but you can see what I mean, where they do so much more work to the monstrous infantry. In comes a massive volley, and not the most accurate of Gnoblars today, unfortunately. Some Gnoblars are whipping around the flanks. It looks like the Gnoblar Trappers do need to fall back a little bit. Continue to pepper down the Soul Grinder where possible. 9 armor's decent, but a load of sharp daggers should eventually be able to push that through. Looks like my opponent is just trying to protect Kugarth a little bit here, falling back and driving away any trappers who are getting so close to try and chuck some blades into his squishy flesh. Hidden in the trees, it looks like the Forsaken have been dealt with, which is really good news for me. Only one Spawn is left standing, and down he goes. This is going to be quite a nice little contingent of force to come and fight in the final battle over here, particularly with Grease's Goldtooth. That anti-large melee expert should really help out quite considerably. At least I hope so. Gnoblar Trappers are unleashing nets and booby traps and bear traps that tend to slow down the Soul Grinders. The Soul Grinders are powerful contraptions of both flesh, demon magic, and metal, and that's not exactly going to be easy to take down, particularly for a few small fellas who are charging in looking for that big fat surround. Now, luckily for me, I have the Overwatch fire of the Gnoblar Trappers. My opponent is making a big mistake here, in my humble ducky opinion. Soul Grinders should not even consider engaging the Gnoblars. There's almost no point. We can tear out them in the endgame, charge through, and shut down the Gnoblar Trappers, because they're the ones who can be able to do that long-range damage. And it looks like a Blight Ball does go down and unfortunately pops. Does some pretty big damage to the Gnoblar Trappers, who get sent flying in all different directions. Sending quite a few of the Gnoblars retreating, but they should be able to come back. Scrap launchers are still unleashing hell, but at this point I was a bit more worried about hitting my own lads than I was the enemy. So I'm going to be starting to move up the scrap launchers, looking to get engaged in melee combat. They have pretty decent weapon strength all round, and a juicy charge bonus of 48, so they're going to be coming in and helping where possible. Grease's Goldtooth is popping. Everyone has their price on Kugarth Plaguefather and is trying his best in hand-to-hand combat. He is currently 2v1. There's also some little Nurglings who have been summoned. They may well explode as well. But look at the blades pouring in. Grease's Goldtooth not going down without a fight here. Massacre's been popped on him. Landings cause terror, increasing his base weapon damage and armor piercing, and he's really bringing the plane to Kugath Plaguefather, who though of course can heal up, and we're also taking significant damage. Scrap launchers have moved into hand-to-hand combat, looking to drag down the Soul Grinders. This one's a little isolated. I like to see my troops kind of float over there and really trying to finish it off where possible. Looks like a big old rancid visitation going down on some of my scrap launchers. And the GNOBLAR trappers, everyone cheer for the GNOBLAR trappers. They're brave lads today, getting in here and trying to keep the sick in their stomach rather than coming up, which is often quite a hard thing to do, I think, against Nurgle, and continue to launch shots in. They must be so nervous charging in, but if Greasus promises not to eat us, it's got to be a good deal. And they're raising their prison shanks, moving to engage in hand-to-hand combat against the greater demon chosen by Nurgle himself to attempt to dispatch the pesky ogres once and for all. But the mighty king, Greasus Goldtooth, not going down without a scrap himself. He's done massive damage to Kugath. You can see the boy, though, has healed up. Now I'm going to have to drag back Greasus. I realise this isn't working. I'm attempting to assassinate the enemy general. I was hoping with this amount of range power coming in from the trappers, plus Greasus, we could take him down, and it's just not happening. So Greasus is going to have to rotate round and attempt to isolate and pick apart the Soul Grinders, who are really struggling up against the GNOBLAR trappers and scrappers, because there is so many of us like bugged around these guys that we can just keep ramming them in the rear and attempt to drag them down. And likewise, GNOBLAR scrap launchers are dragged by these mighty beasts with their horns, kind of fantasy rhinos. Should be enough to pierce through the flesh and hopefully render the metal, and we'll have a load of sickly ichor pour out from the wounds, no doubt, of the Soul Grinders, and most likely take a few of the GNOBLARs with them. But hey, it's a price I am willing to pay. It seems like Kugath once again is getting a little bit low, down to about half HP. We can also see his healing cap. And Greasus Goldtooth is actually currently cycle charging him down. I think it's a mistake from me, though. I definitely should have been going after these pesky Soul Grinders on the flank. But we do have the Scepter Pop, so hey, what do I know? If it allows us to get a bit of damage, I'm all for it. Vomit is spewed forth from Kugath Plaguefather, blessing the GNOBLAR trappers with the gifts of Papa Nurgle. Not so sure they're going to be that happy with them. GNOBLAR trappers still launching shots. Not that much ammo left. We are getting a little obstructed, so we're not firing that often. And it looks like we do have a dismember go down on the Soul Grinders as we attempt to rip them to pieces. And we've managed to distract one Soul Grinder with a few little basic GNOBLARs, and that has allowed us to circle and ensnare this other Soul Grinder who's getting pegged in by the quad GNOBLAR scrap launchers. Load more shots are coming in. Kugath is not having the best of days so far. When saying he's up to 373 kills. I do think if he was an exalted greater demon of Nurgle, exalted unclean one, I think he would probably have won the game by now, because all of these trappers would be dead, all of my units would be dead from that Morse engine. But the fact is, Kugath is kind of putting us in a situation where maybe I still have hope. Now, the balance power is against us. I decided to sacrifice one GNOBLAR scrap launcher into Kugath to pin him in place. And now you can see the scrap is really being launched by the GNOBLAR trappers, constantly throwing shot after shot into Kugath now that they're freed up and can actually see him. I believe Greasus Goldtooth was blocking their line of sight earlier, and the damage is really being poured on now. If we can pin him in with a few units, that's going to allow me to circle and ensnare the Soul Grinders with the scrap launchers. Though we do have a contagion going down low in our melee defense, I don't care as long as we're still doing that damage output. Looks like one Soul Grinder may indeed go down. Greasus is trying in his own slow and haggard way. Look at these little GNOBLARs trying to push him forward. In his own haggard way, he's attempting to cycle charge these Soul Grinders to death. And it looks like we're about to drag one of the horrid beasts of war down. And it looks like it's going down pretty quickly now that we've got Greasus over there in that engagement. GNOBLAR trappers continue to unleash hell on Kugath, down to 7,200 HP right now, though yet another heal is going to be going on top of him. Glacier Abundance, very powerful heal in general. However, he's very close to his healing cap, so it's not really going to be super effective, though still annoying nonetheless. One Soul Grinder does eventually bite the dust, being banished back to the realms of Nurgle to answer for his crimes against beauty. And the other Soul Grinder, Plaguefather's Oration, going down on him, increases melee defense and leadership, keeping him in action for now. Where once again, we're going to be able to get a decent surround on him. And really starting to dwindle ammunition-wise, which is quite a concern for me, because Kugath is still alive and up to over 400 kills. He is a wrecking ball to be, indeed, and kind of someone to be reckoned with for sure. Infested Nurglings are popping forward. Luckily, their explosion is not going to do too much damage to my mighty GNOBLAR scrap launchers, who are surrounded and attempting to drag down the Soul Grinder. So we're going to fast forward a little bit here. As you can see, it's got incredibly grindy. GNOBLAR trappers continue to unleash hell upon Kugarth, doing some really big damage to him, down to about 7,000 HP, but I'm also very close to being out of ammunition. We get a lovely charge and surround on the Soul Grinder, and the mighty Greasus Goldtooth continues to fight despite taking significant damage. So this Soul Grinder does eventually bite the dust, and now we're coming in for the final confrontation. We're surrounding the mighty Plague Father himself and attempting to drag him low. Greasus Goldtooth's getting down and dirty in the action. Looks like we're going to be getting a big buff or debuff. Looks like Stand Your Ground has gone down. Greasus Goldtooth bellowing to the lads. Though many of you have died, that just means there's more loot for the rest of us. And with that, you hear the GNOBLARs scream victorious and charge back into the fray once more, shanking Kugarth in every orifice possible. The Nurglings are having a whale of a time, but their Liege Lord is not. Greasus Goldtooth maybe have the curse of the slug on him, but little does Nurgle know. He knows how to move slowly but with purpose, and it's going to be enough here to drag down Kugarth, it seems, who only has 2,000 HP left. Over 500 kills. Many GNOBLARs have fled or be felled today. The Greasus and the Scrap Launchers will have a feast in their honor, and it shall be a Pyrrhic victory for the full GNOBLAR build. Now, the crazy thing is, you may say, my god, Ducky, you must have brought this build a million of times to get a replay where you won with it. Nope, this is the only time I brought this build, and it won. It has a 100% win record with a full GNOBLAR build, and I think I'm never going to play it again so we can keep that title. I am arguably a better tactician than Alexander the Great and Hannibal combined. I don't think if you gave them an army full of GNOBLARs, they would have been able to achieve such feats as they did in life. So, of course I'm joking, those guys are pretty legendary for sure. But well played to my opponent. Put up an absolute scrap. I believe this was... maybe he was Alex who we played? I'm trying to think what this guy's name was. Maybe it was Alex, maybe it wasn't. Apologies if I got that wrong. It was from a couple of days ago. And my god, Kugarth the Beast. 3.3k value. 566 kills, but what can men do against such reckless Greasus Goldtooth play? 5.4k value on him. 38 kills and a bucket ton of damage of value. 22,666 damage dealt. I'll delve into the value and stuff of these units in a memento, but if you guys enjoyed, really appreciate if you leave a big fat juicy thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already to the channel. We're getting very close to 10,000, and I can't wait for us to hit that landmark. Likewise, leave a comment down below what you thought of the battle, what you'd like to see in the future. I do have a full Toad build as well that I'm thinking of putting up. I believe Logic has already cast that game, but if you guys would like to see it as well from my point of view, let me know and I'll get it going. Also, load of links in the description: Twitch, Patreon, Discord. Patreon's where you can support the channel financially. Discord is where you can submit replays and get involved in live streams and events and that kind of stuff I host. And Twitch, I occasionally do extra streams. Once again, well played to my opponent. Big damage on the Greasus Goldtooth boyo. 690, 640, 860, and 720, and 700 value on the GNOBLAR Scrap Launcher. Was very pivotal, though. Took out the enemy infantry early on, and that allowed us to surround and drag down the single entities of the enemy. GNOBLAR trappers, 500, 500, 900, 900, 800, and 1,000 gold value on them. Not shabby whatsoever. The little GNOBLARs, of course, were born to die, but they did it in style, and that's got to count for something. Kugarth Plague Father did a decent job, of course. 566 kills, 3,300 value, 2.3 and 1.7 on the Soul Grinders, both getting in there, the 320. I'm sure they would have rather had a 420, but, you know, they did okay nonetheless. 150 on the spawn. The infantry got absolutely decimated before it really could impact the battle. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.